The Human Torch has oddly shaped feet.
You're listening to the inaugural episode of Tap Tempo with me, Matt Lange. I always found that my favorite conversations be the ones I had when I was having a beer with another musician. And even when it's someone you never met before, there are so many parallels that usually run current between your lives. So this is that, except there's a microphone on in front of it. We're going to start off with a bit of a bang here, and I'm really excited that this first episode is actually a round table with a number of producers I respect. So, seated at this table, none of them need any introduction really at all. We have Calyx TeeBee, Matt Zoe, 12th Planet, and Photek. So the way this came to be was pretty unexpected, to be honest. I've known Calyx and TeeBee for years, and they just happened to be in LA when I first came up with the concept for this show. So I asked them, would you come over, record this first one with me? And they graciously agreed, except then the night of the show, they kind of pulled a fast one on me. And they just texted me and said, you know what? Come to 12th Planet's house. He's got nice couches. And, oh yeah, by the way, Photek is here also. And that's one of those, drop the mic moments, because if you grew up listening to electronic music, especially in the 90s, you know how important Photek was to that scene. So it was just an opportunity that was too cool to pass up. I reached out to Matt Zoe and I said, hey, you want to come do this? And he, of course, just basically jumped in the car. So stopped at the Highland Park Brewery, picked up a growler of their beer Spaceship as an offering to the group, and drove down. I also would like to thank Greg Chin and Avid for giving me one of their Avid quartets to use for this show. It's a great sounding piece of gear, and it would have been a lot more difficult to record this many people at the same time had I not had it. So thank you, Greg. Also, I should let you know that Mousetrap, which is Deadmau5's record label, and the same record label that's released two of my albums in the past few years, well, they're turning 10 next week. So we're going to throw them a little bit of a party. It's in Toronto. It's at Rebel. And on the bill, we have Monster Get Down, Black Gummy, Atlas, and myself going back to back, just like we did in LA a couple months ago, Rez, and of course the man himself, Deadmau5. So again, it is Friday, July 21st. It's at Rebel. It's not sold out yet, but I'm sure it will because it's Deadmau5. So if you want to join us then, I would suggest getting your tickets now. And that all being said, let's get into the round table. I've split it up into two parts because it's pretty tech heavy, but there is a lot of wisdom in here, a lot of insight. There are techniques that I learned over this table that I've incorporated into my own work since then. The only thing I regret is how long it took me to actually put the show out, because we recorded this at the end of January, and now it's the beginning of July, and to all the guys who were at that table and really generously donated their time, I'm sorry. But it's here now. I got nervous. It happens to all of us, and I really hope you guys get as much out of it as I did. On a personal level, some of these guys have been really influential on me and my own music, so it's really a pleasure to have them involved in this. And here we go.
I'm Torgeir Birknes. No, in all seriousness, hello. I'm TeeBee.
I'm Matan, also known as Matt Zoe.
I'm Larry Calyx.
I'm John, 12th Planet.
Photek.
Oh yeah, by the way, we're at my house right now recording this thing. This is so sick.
So we're at the compound, the legendary compound in downtown LA, home of Top Shelf Management and 12th Planet.
12th Planet, reporting for duty. I will say one thing. I have not seen a new Star Wars yet. Even though this is not music related, I think it is a travesty.
I haven't seen it either.
Oh my God.
You guys need to get on it. Because, so, Riz Ahmed, do you guys know this guy?
No.
So this must be a dream for him. He plays the guy, he's a Brit actor, he plays the guy who is Rogue One. The movie is named after him. Is that not a dream come true for a young Brit actor to be Rogue One in the new Star Wars movie? I mean, wow. You got to see it. It's good. And stormtroopers on a beach in the Bahamas. Wow. That's the scenario. That's the scenario.
They've got bikinis.
Wow.
Stormtroopers don't wear bikinis. Or maybe they do under the armor. I don't know.
Stormtroopers in the Bahamas. This is incredible.
You have to see it. You have to see it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm the only one who's seen Star Wars?
Yeah, I think so. In this entire room.
What the fuck?
Actually, no,
What's wrong with you?
I've seen it 3 times.
You've seen it 3 times, all right.
Priorities.
Basically.
Exactly.
This is the real reason you stop working at 6 p.m. every day.
Yeah. Got to catch that 8 o'clock show. No, seriously. I stopped working at 6 o'clock because I got to spend 2 hours with my son before he goes to bed. That simple. And I get up at 6 a.m. to spend 2 hours with him before I start work. That's the kind of dad I am.
Has he played with any of your synths yet?
Yeah, he currently, before I left, I took a few things out. I got out a turntable, I got out an EMU 64 sampler, and just a synth I don't really use because he's not allowed to go in the studio anymore when I'm not there. And the reason for that is I came home, probably way better than me. But I came home after, I don't know, we'd been away for a weekend and my missus had let him go in by himself. And he had gently pushed in every speaker cone there was. And there was a pair of vintage Baron Wilkins in there, which they don't even recreate the cones anymore, so they're long gone. So he's not allowed anymore. And when he was younger, God damn it, no, I can't tell this story in the podcast. It's too dark. But yeah, no, so he's not allowed in it, but he loves it. His favorite is there's a preset in Omnisphere called Crazy Robots in Space.
Perfect.
That's his favorite. Like, that's what he wants me to bring up, and he presses the button and the weirdness comes out and he cracks up and he runs around the room and it goes on for hours.
You gotta overdub that patch in there.
Yeah. His favorite part is bitch. Yeah, for sure.
Dude, actually, I got the patch. We need to hear this.
Oh, do you?
Yeah,
Crazy Robots in Space. That's the one we're after. Yeah, that's it.
That's the one.
For hours on end.
This podcast should be called Silly Robots in Space.
Hey, what's Baron Wilkins?
Baron Wilkins is a traditional, sort of like historic English speaker company.
Holy,
that
what does
makes
it sound
really.
like?
It sounds well. They've got a range going from sort of entry level, couple of £100 for small speakers until speakers that are cost as much as a house.
Damn.
So the ones I had was like vintage. Sort of mid-level, but irreplaceable. It's unless you're going 10, 15k plus, which obviously then you'd reach for ATCs. I don't see a point in going anything else than Klein and Hummel 310s because they got the ATC mid-range.
Rupert does not look impressed.
He's just saying a lot of words I've never heard of. Bauman Mercer, bloody tops.
Don't bring watches into this room.
Bloody Friedman Kushner top end. I don't know what you're talking about. You're going to have to explain.
I'm talking about
I'm going to need a website.
I'm talking about a closed cabinet, no farting sounds, flat frequency response down to 30 hertz with an ATC mid-range.
Okay. And what are they called again?
Klein and Hummel.
Klein and Hummel.
Neumann, Klein
They are
and
the
Hummel,
business.
310.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Bender.
Yeah.
What PIMs have you got?
The 288.
Oh, 288. Okay, I had them
I love
at home.
them. I love them. They're my favourite speakers ever.
Well, it's like apples and oranges, right? It's like for me, they didn't work, but
You've got to stop sticking your fingers in them. They're not for
This
that.
is not going well. I feel people are ganging up on me. It's the best of British here. It's the best of British against a lone Norwegian. I don't like this.
I thought you were British.
I fake a good accent. That's good. That's good. Then. Does your modules have French girl names? Is that it?
No, but 2 of them have Latin names.
Really?
Uh-huh.
What's that?
Basilis Ateritas.
What does that mean?
I have no idea.
All right. Fair enough.
A Harry Potter incantation.
No, they're made by this company, Noise Engineering, and they're just based out of the east side of LA too, and they make a lot of really cool Eurorack modules. That the first one was this drum module. That was actually the Basilis, and it did everything from, kind of, you could do 909, 808 kind of things into really like harsh FM, hi-hats, snares, drums, everything. It was really cool. And then now, he's got, 20, 30 different modules at this point. But they all have this name where the style is kind of this faux Latin Montis Ateritas kind of thing.
Okay, but let's talk about modular for a minute. Because that's the hype of the world. Is like, modular? But why? Why is it? Is it the hands-on thing? Is that what does it for you? Is it actually not looking at a screen? Is it the random accidents?
It's the random accidents more than anything, for sure. I'll get ideas out of it that I never would think of if I was thinking in traditional musical means. Yeah. But by just noodling around, playing with non-traditional instruments such as sequencers, or I guess it's traditional now, but. You come up with, and like random voltage, things like that, you get ideas that you just never would have ever thought of. So from a creative standpoint, it's really inspiring. And then sonically, it sounds amazing because you can build your own custom Frankenstein of a synthesizer where you could take the oscillator of a Moog, you can take the filter of an SH-101, you can put it through the VCA of a Schweiman, and you can really create this thing. The problem is it's really expensive because you need a ton of them. And, even if you want to do anything polyphonic, you got to buy as many oscillators as you're going to want to make a chord.
Exactly. So basically,
So what's the benefit of a modular over just a normal synth?
If you played it, you would know.
That's just not a good answer.
But that's the truth of it. Like people sold me it, or I think they sold me on it for 5 years probably before I finally dove in. And I just kind of pushed it aside because, it's expensive and why? Until someone physically brought over a modular to my apartment at the time, and within 5 minutes of playing it was like, oh, I get it.
Right.
Just like that.
Yeah.
Do you have a degree in physics?
No.
I've got an old MS-2000,
Little Korg?
Yeah. And playing around with that is, I find it just as rewarding as maybe you would with a modular. But I don't know. Do you think there really is a great improvement in sound quality?
Yeah. It's a different sound quality. When you have a fixed synth, you're automatically getting routed through whatever they pre-programmed for you. When you have the modular, you can take the hard output straight out of a raw oscillator and nothing else. And nothing's going to be coloring that tone. So you can have these really raw sounds and very almost shifting organic sounds, and the current of the flux of your electricity will change how the synth actually performs. So
I just said that's just way over my head.
But basically, the main advantage is you're getting something completely original as well, right?
Yeah, it's just
not a preset from a plugin that everyone can reach for. You may not even be able to recreate it again yourself.
You definitely can't recreate it yourself. That's the thing. It's you got these individual moments, and in that moment, whatever you created, that's it. Mm-hmm. And so I'll after I record something I like, I'll just tear out every cable and just start again. It forces you to recreate and keep moving.
But do you do that in normal soft synths as well?
No, because it's too easy.
Really? It's so much fun though.
I know it's pretentious, but I want to have a hardware box where I can just go plug things in and turn knobs and see what I get.
It's way more interesting than looking at a screen as well.
Oh, it's so much.
Looking at screens 23 hours a day.
And it's so much more fun.
The last thing you want to do is look at a picture of something that you could put your hands on.
Right.
It's a little bit like mine and Larry's, not obsession, but at least fascination with real good outboard stuff, whether it's a compressor or an EQ or something, because in this day and age when we all fight for getting our tracks the most sonically accurate and, the loudest by using, visual tools. And when you are staring at the screen, yes, you're turning knobs and whatnot on the screen, but there is something about actually looking away from it, you know, especially with, like, I have a really unhealthy obsession with compressors, like really unhealthy. Where the point where I'll be the first to admit I'll make up an image, or like I'll put something on a pedestal in my mind way before I even get it in the house, and I'll kind of expect what it'll do, and I'll read and I'll know so much about it that the moment it's in the house, I actually lose interest and I got to get the next one. And the problem is they get more and more expensive, right? So the next one I want to get is 7K.
Where did it begin? What compressor?
It actually started with something as simple as the SSL G-Bus. Because
Stop that. That was it for me. I got that. That was great.
Yeah, but that is amazing. It is amazing. But the thing is, it's like when you try a software emulation of a famous or, like, you know, renowned hardware. You're like, right, this is actually really good, and like you should just sort of stop there, really. But the thing is, the first thing that comes into my mind is like, well, this is this good. Well, is the hardware going to be 10% better, or is it going to be 50% better, or is it going to be just different? You know, is it going to be, I don't know. But like, I've yet to come across a compressor though where the emulation's better than the actual unit.
It never ever is.
No, I mean, and it's so different. It's like, you know, people are probably familiar with the Cush, the Clarophonic, the plugin, which is tremendous. But let me tell you, the hardware is like 80% better. You know, just the shimmer and just it's just a whole nother world. So you buy the plugin for about $250, and you can get the hardware for about $1,200. And for me,
For one instance,
exactly. But then again, you know, it's fun to record, right? Especially if you got 120 stems, 5 minute long. But yeah, that's
Did you
sort
do
of my
that?
thing. Yeah,
one at a time.
If the end result deserves it, yeah.
Yeah, you'll do it.
Yeah.
weirdly though, that it goes a little bit hand in hand, and that software often inspires our obsession with hardware, and that UAD have just...
Yeah.
You know, there's so many emulations where you just fantasize about the real thing and read and learn about it and hear sort of well done cross-refs between the two. And just, you know, that's where the pining begins. With software, actually, with an emulation. Usually.
And then you end up wanting
even
the hardware
G-Bus, we
later.
started with Waves, G-Bus, then we found UAD was better than the
G-Bus,
Waves.
and we're like, right. And also it goes hand in, you know, you listen to your listen to your competition and you think,
okay.
you know, what am I going to do to achieve that sort of... Because, you know, we're all in sort of war with each other, right? And it's like you listen to the people who are really loud, really punchy, really clear, not really distorted, the image fantastic. And you're like, yeah, you know, maybe if I buy this and this and this, and you try and find your own way, because sometimes you're too proud to call them up and ask, what did you do, you know? And also you want to find your own way.
Sure.
And... it never works out. Let's just put it this way. There's a kid in Russia right now in his mum's kitchen with a pair of, if he's lucky, Apple in-ears. No one told him that sounding like Noisier was hard, right? Because that's what he grew up on. Mm-hmm. So within 3-4 months, in Fruity Loops or Reason, he's going to find a way. And that is the beauty, I think, honestly, of like what we do, is that no matter how skilled you get or how far you get or whatever angle you choose, there's always room for improvement. And I think that is the reason that this is the only thing that's stuck with me permanently my whole life.
Yeah, and it's interesting you said Noisier, because, you know, they get a lot of their sound through digital processing. You know, they arrived at hardwares later.
Exactly.
You know, I think it's really interesting seeing what you can do with just software, you know,
It's like Nick had, I know he had loads of the Thermionic gear at home and he was really impressed by it. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get this compressor. I'm going to get this summer because, you know, I'm blowing things up with it and it's quick. But he's like, hang on a minute. And he spent like a week trying to recreate it. And he got so close again, he decided. And it's like for us now, we've got all this hardware and we got, you know, X amount of channels of SSL and we got all these compressors. And what I find more and more now is that it's fantastic for like giving character to your individual sounds. But lately, when it comes to the mixdown again, you know, the myth of there being loads of headroom in the analog domain is a blatant lie, because all of that will induce distortion. You know, when you run it through that kind of you know, transistors and preamps and EQs, everything's going to add a tiny bit of distortion. So by the time you sum it all up and send it back in the box again from a load of outside sources of various degrees of hiss and whatnot, you're never, ever going to get the same amount of loudness as you will do with ones and zeros, right, if that's what you're after. It's impossible. Like, we've mixed some of our tracks X amount of times outside the box, and we could never get it fully right, but we could get it sounding individually because we got all this great kit, so we can mold the sounds of the individual tracks to where we want it and to give it an identity. And that's my main problem with things inside the box, is that people are sounding a bit too clinical and you're losing a bit of the... Because it's one thing to get a good mix down, but it's another thing entirely to actually put your fingerprint on the mix down so it has an individuality, so that people can recognize your sound, not just from the track and style of music you're making, but actually how you present it sonically. And I think that's the dark arts of like being a producer and like really carving out something special for yourself, is when you have an identity not only in your track but in your mix.
Yeah, that's the main advantage of having hardware, you know, because it's like, you know, no matter what, not everybody is going to have the exact same hardware as you. And every hardware colors the sound a little bit.
Not just that, but because you've invested money in it. Right. Really, at a base level, you revere it more, you learn it more. A plugin, you can just move on, try another thing. Something's going to do the job you're looking for it to do. Whereas these things, you know, even when you're listening to sound before you even started working on it with a unit, you've already got a good idea of what feeling, you know, just how it's going to sound, the effect, the feel. I don't know. I just think you sort of learn it so much more, so much deeper. Yeah. And results going to have a lot, you know, more character to it than just
Yeah, I do think you can achieve the same results with software, but, you know, it just gives you a better starting point when you have hardware, you know. It just gives you, like, so much more, like, of a head start when it comes to, like, you know.
Unless you got 15 units of Behringer.
Right.
Hey, do you think there is any room to even put your signature on mix downs, specifically when you're in a loudness war? Like, how do you find room for style?
Yeah, there is. I mean, there really is. It all comes down to, you have your frequency spectrum. You know, you got it's math, and the thing is, if you have a wind instrument, which is recorded with loads of dynamics, you decide as an artist whether the importance of that instrument, because that instrument isn't necessarily going to cope with being squashed very well. So there's loads of creative choices within the mix down if you mix for loudness. And we are as guilty as anyone. We probably spend, no kidding, 10% of the time being creative and 90% of the time being surgical. And it's you know, we used to be able to make a track in like 5-6 hours, you know.
No, I was never like that, actually.
I was like
that.
Like, days, yeah. I would write, including sampling time, I would write a track in 5 hours. But now it's like finding the right sound to do the right kind of thing and sit in the pocket where you want it to be. I mean, it's a massive struggle, but at the same time, like the sounds that I have in my head that I know that I want out, when the end product's ready and it is as loud as I want it to be and as pounding as I want it to be, that is actually what I was after, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not necessarily, like, that is, because, you know, you got to set yourself another challenge. And for me, at least, and unless you try and better yourself for each step you go, if you keep doing the same thing, if I kept doing the same thing again and again, I'd go insane. I can't do that.
So are you doing like a lot of your sound design in the project, or are you like doing it first and then
No. I find making parts for something specific is great and all, and it gives you, you know, like musically, a good melody is still a good melody, but depending on the mood of the track, the riff's got to have a mood that matches the other bits. So I find, instead of, for instance, how I traditionally worked was I'll get loads of sound in a project. Like, I get the beats ready first because, you know, if the beats are shit, everything else is going to fall apart. Like, the beats got to sit right. That's the most important backbone of any track. If that's too quiet, if that's too distorted or anything, unless that's what you're going for, then if you're mixing for loudness, which isn't necessarily important, but it's something that I like doing, then you know, that's got to be on point. But I just find that with most of Larry and myself's tracks, they're 3 tracks before they're finished.
Right.
But sometimes we come full circle. Sometimes an idea is really good and we roll with it. But a lot of it is just, you know, bang your head against the wall until you get a... But there's ways around it. For instance, like sidechaining. Sidechaining doesn't work for me because there's no compressor that can be as accurate as I need it to be.
Sure. So you do everything by hand? Like...
It's by hand.
Wow.
Chops and fades, we're pretty quick at it.
Yeah. But you know, obviously you develop certain things that your own, and we have developed a few things that I'm not going to put in a podcast because you know you need your little yards ahead, right?
Are you doing it volume automation when you're doing the drops, or just doing it hard into the audio file?
I'm not telling you. No.
No, we could talk about that.
No. We do a mix of things, but there's. You know, you got to take the air into accounting here and how the air works. And you know, if you put a 10 millisecond gap between 2 sounds, where the one is sort of like, where you sort of have the impact of one sound and you have the tail of another sound, in a digital world, you can save yourself a lot of headroom by making sure that one sound is completely silent for that instance, but the air is not going to perceive it. Right. So for the air, it's going to sound like they're equally loud, but they just gel together. But if you put those 2 sounds together on top of each other, you annihilate your headroom. But if you completely tailor one from silence and let the transient of the other sound bleed through, and you draw the tail into to match the waveform of the other sound, you've already gained yourself infinite headroom, like to the point where you have one sound. Yeah. That's part of the key to a loud mix. Yeah. And also things like cutting out a zero crossing at any given time on any sound, so you annihilate clicks, and then do a fade slightly longer than you need to. And think about, you know, any compressor, any limiter is going to need a moment to catch itself. Sure. So that little gap that you have before your next big transient or your big moment, that microsecond of silence is actually crucial to retaining dynamics even when it's squashed. That's how it works.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's the key. And that's the sort of depth you'll be going to. It's like literally... You look at the waveforms, and you can. It's you know, who can draw sound the best. That's loudness. Yeah.
Well, I guess I achieved the same effect, and I think a lot of people do this. Is just create, you know, a separate click track for each, you know.
Yeah, you can totally do that.
Yeah.
But I just don't like, you know, like I've yet to find a compressor that can have zero attack on it and not make a click in the sound.
Yeah, that's
if I cut a waveform at a zero crossing, and I you know, just move it a tiny bit from where the next transient come in, and I draw the curve in with the volume to match the, you know, the anti-curve on the other one.
Yeah. See, now I feel lazy.
Boom, you know, but that's part of what we do, and it's extremely time consuming.
We don't even think about it though. It's just done standardly.
It's standard how we do it
to most things.
Yeah. And it's you know, like we're giving away trick we could have been paid a lot of money for saying that, because it's true though. We really, you can cut it out, but you can leave it in as well. It's fine. No, it's fine.
But Track Spacer, we could talk about Track Spacer as well. Don't know if you guys have used that. Incredibly simple, fantastic plugin.
I want to say one thing. That's one of those techniques. Like when I first started programming breaks, that I wasn't afraid to share because I thought I was the only lunatic who would actually subject myself to that. I'm like, I will tell you all my secrets because you will get so bored. But before you get a result, I'm not afraid that you're ever going to get it. So
yeah, I've never get why artists don't share their secrets more, because the time it takes and the level of, pain and
and no one will ever be able to do it as well as you do. And if they do, they're 3 years behind you.
And, nobody has the same musical sensibility as you.
But you know what the gratifying moment is? Is when that one person notices and, comes up to you and is grateful that you actually went to those lengths for it. That's all I care about. Like, someone else actually noticed. Because when you sit there, it's the ultimate of self-indulgence. It really is. It's like, how far can you stretch your own patience? How far can you stretch your own imagination? And how deep are you willing to go for the absolute most uncool thing in the universe, which is just being a reclusive nerd by yourself looking at waveforms at a screen.
It's so true.
But the worst thing is people think we're cool.
Because none of us put on Facebook that we're actually looking at waveforms all day.
No, we're in the studio.
We're in the studio, or we're on a beach, or
we're
on
in a
mountain.
club. We're getting drunk somewhere.
Realistically.
There's chicks and stuff. Anyone would ever be in one of our green rooms, they know that's not the truth.
You have to get drunk. I mean, look at your day job.
Yeah, that's good. No, I mean, but it is fascinating though, because there's been a few instances over the years where the game changed overnight, and for us as a genre that we're familiar with drum and bass, it was Photek and Dillinger changed everything. And then in later years, the ones who made the massive impact on especially, getting stuff sitting right was Pendulum, was when Rob Swire came along with his absolute ridiculous attention to details. I mean, everything changed and everything had to step their game up. And
where do you think the crossover was when drum and bass production got really surgical?
It was Vault by Pendulum.
Yeah.
It was the thing that sounded twice as heinous as anything in the club.
It did, but I think it was surgical and just forensic. Way back when Rupert was pioneering stuff.
No, I totally agree.
Was, relative to other genres, but then it was holy shit.
What he did as well is yet to be recreated, as far as the impact it had on us as a scene. I'm not just saying that as a fanboy. I'm saying that because I generally mean it. And it's like to this day, obviously, the ghosts and the fucking, legacy of that still shines through us as a genre. There's nothing really yet still that's truly innovative, because everything's been done as far as, stylistically and creatively, which is the most important thing in any genre, in my opinion, much more so than dynamics and loudness. But we've reached a point now where, unfortunately, in modern dance music, the impact due to the nature of where it's presented and the reaction, it boils down to basic psychology, how can you get the most reaction out of these kids? Usually, if you have a headroom on a rig, but you sound louder than the guy before you, you're going to get a bigger reaction, because that's human nature, right? And that's where the surgical precision becomes so important, because you walk up to one DJ before you in a club and every light's on red. What are you going to do? Are you going to turn it down? You're not going to turn it down. But you're going to have to make sure that your tracks sound a little bit better than his being ass squashed, right? And that's where the loudness
to be fair,
comes in.
actually, we hunt down the sound guy
of
and we have a
we
speech
do,
that we're going to turn it down.
But we're smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. But in the instances where we have been, previous
sure.
When we were, doing smaller gigs and whatnot, there wasn't always a sound engineer, and it was like, it goes back to dubplate culture as well. How could you get a loud dubplate? You pull a Lemon D and mix in mono. but that's not really an option. But I think that's where the obsession comes from. It's just, you got to be louder than the next man and getting punchy in the club,
I hope you enjoyed the first part of the round table. Admittedly, we can all get a little silly at times, and I think that's just a natural byproduct of us all being fairly reclusive. And then you stick us all in a room and you feed us beer, and that happens. However, tune in for the next episode where we go deeper into the loudness wars and a bunch of individual production techniques and things that make our own records sound like us.